So at this point, I'd like to open it up. And it's along those same themes of what matters to you most. What are the things that you need to have here in Clarksburg? Essentially, the grocery store proposals that have been proposed, and this is public. It's public, right? Okay. The grocery store proposals that have been out there have asked for a lot more than a reasonable retailer would pay. And so the developer in this instance is asking for a bit more than what is reasonably expected. And that's the reason why I think we haven't gotten the bids that we need to get when it comes to the grocery store. And if we were to make some changes in terms of what they might be asking for or seeking as a part of their RFP process, we might actually have a grocery store that's here and might actually have somebody that would fill that RFP. So that's the first piece. The second question, yes, I totally agree with you that when it comes to making sure that we have the infrastructure that's in place, it's got to be in tandem. And certainly that's where we're going to rely upon some of the current proposals that Park and Planning has in place in terms of improvements as part of the CIP process, of course working with the County Council in terms of some of the road project improvements and making sure that we're elevating those to the level necessary to match the timeframes of when some of these other projects are coming online. So it's all a coordination together. So to answer your question, yes, they would have to be in tandem so that we don't start making some of the same mistakes that we made before in building up without having the infrastructure to support it. Those two things have to happen in tandem. You know, when we talk about who's on the hook for the bill, you know, for a lot of these projects, it certainly is developer driven. And when you talk about incentivizing the developer to pay, incentives can be positive or negative. So I'll kind of just leave it at that there are a number of different options that the county has that I think will be explored when it comes to making sure that the stakeholders are delivering on promises that were made. And there are a number of options that are out there. But another key part of it is making sure that we're also, the other piece of it is to make sure that we also are having folks that are here to be able to utilize some of those things that are necessary as well. I think that they go hand in hand, I really do.
It's not a deal between the property owner and Wegmans. It may still be appealed legally.
Right.
On what grounds? There were some people who appealed an objection saying that the Wegmans should not be occurring at that location. It should be occurring closer to the town center. So, you know, there's always, and in any process like that at our agency, there's the opportunity for someone to appeal it legally. But we are proceeding with them. They're trying to pull, and they may have already for grading permit or something like that.
Right. I must say I agree with you. You know, and part of this whole discussion encompasses, you know, a lot of the decisions that we make for infrastructure are also developer dependent. And, you know, there are formulas that we use in which we come up with how much developers should contribute when it comes to schools. And what I've consistently seen over the years is that regardless of what area you are, whether you're in Clarksburg or Silver Spring or Germantown or Laytonsville or even Poolsville, that it never comes out just right. And we always run into this problem. And why is that? And so it's something that we need to take a serious look at. And I think that as we move forward, you know, while it doesn't currently solve the problem besides us eventually building another school, which is the reality or an addition, I'd like to see us start building schools that are actually capable of being expanded easily. And there are a number of different proposals that other jurisdictions use where they shell out a certain part of the school where it's just not finished. That, it's just a facade at that point so that the school can expand. And we need to start looking at new and innovative ways in which we're building our schools to allow for capacity to increase without having to rely upon portables. And so that's one of the things that, again, on the Education Committee that I hope to try and push us to start looking at from a budgetary perspective as we build, because that's how we smartly ensure that we're meeting the needs of our community and not just by kind of playing catch up after the fact and throwing portables in the, and you're right, it makes a big difference when it comes to all the operational parts of the school, not just for the kids going to the portable classrooms. I hear you loud and clear, and that's what this meeting is about. To make sure that I understand where my residents are, and it seems to me as though there's a want for us to take a look at that and explore those options, and that's why I wanted to meet tonight to make sure that we talk about these kinds of things, and if that's something that's the will of the community, then that's something that we're certainly going to do. I mean, I don't have any problems in doing so. It's just an understanding that we look at a number of different issues when it comes to our master plan, but looking at a master plan amendment that might address that need and making sure that Clarksburg Village is certainly something that I'm open to. So I didn't want you to think that just because I said there are challenges around it didn't mean I was shying away from it. So Clarksburg Village would be able to move forward if a master plan amendment were done that alleviated some of the triggers that Clarksburg Town Center have to do. It's all a part of the Clarksburg Holistic Master Plan. So Clarksburg Village has done all it needs to in terms of development, and all those triggers are met. So they're ready to go. And so that's part of the problem that's holding up the process is Clarksburg Village wants to build, but can't now because of the Clarksburg Master Plan. And that's held up by Clarksburg Town Center. So this master plan amendment that you heard was being proposed and supported deals with saying that we would allow for the Clarksburg Village development to go ahead and proceed and bypass the requirements that were there for the Clarksburg Town Center. It seems as though we're letting Clarksburg Town Center off the hook, and they're really not. There are still requirements that are there, and any developer who's trying to develop property, which they make money off of, would need to then, to try and recoup some of that money they've invested, would need to build, and they can only build up to a certain point before they have to start providing that infrastructure and can't build. And part of the problem is this, let me just be very succinct, the housing market right now is down. And so there's no incentive. There's no incentive. There's no incentive for them to move forward. And so the challenge is that that's why it's either one of the two. It's not letting Clarksburg Town Center off the hook because they still can't develop. They still can't get their money, and at some point our housing market will come back. I know it's not here now, but at some point it will come back, and they will want to build, and they'll still be on the hook to make sure they deliver on that infrastructure. And in the meantime, you then still have some of the infrastructure that you want in terms of having a grocery store and some other kinds of retail. But again, I'm not trying to sell an idea. I'm just telling you what's out there as options. The historic district and their issues with water and sewer can be solved via something that's totally separate from town center and separate from Clarksburg Village. That actually involves some of the other proposals when you hear talking about stage 4 development and some of the development that's moving into stage 4, as well as the Clarksburg Fire Department. So there are a number, as well as, those are two, and then also you have the pressure coming from the county executive and from myself with WSSC. So there's a 3-tiered approach that's going towards this water access to the historic district. So they're separate from each other. They're all different parts of the puzzle in trying to bring Clarksburg up to fruition. Four years from now, I would say that we have a CCT plan ratified. We have an actual stakeholder for our LSAT or our LCOR ComSat property. We also have some stage 4 development plans in place. We have water access in the historic district, and we have grocery stores and retail in Clarksburg, as well as some identified school improvements as a part of our CIP.